Hello, everyone, and welcome to this weekly webinar produced by Business Performance USA. We are honored to have you as our guests. Every week we look forward to these webinars, and this is going to be a great one today. It's coming from Victor. You know, Business Performance USA is the producer of these webinars, and we offer them every week to provide business insights on a variety of important topics. You know, as you look at this screen, you can see people, process, and performance. I guess what we'd say is we help you develop your people, improve your processes, and drive up your performance. So, with that, today's webinar is the Age of Authenticity Marketing Series, and it's Marketing Return on Investment. I'm Cynthia Stewart, and I'll be your host today. I'm managing partner for Evermore Services, your partner in building tomorrow's businesses today. I'm going to host for this hour. Your presenter is Mr. Victor Dominguez. He's managing partner of the Ligature Group. Victor has launched 3 successful businesses in addition to serving as a senior executive for 2 Fortune 500 corporations, and I know you'll know the names, C.B. Richard Ellis and Morgan Stanley. While at C.B. Richard Ellis, Victor's market strategies, along with his fantastic team that he put together, helped the firm achieve the #1 brand in the industry. In the course of his career, he has worked with over 80 companies to build their brand equity through corporate communications, branding, marketing, sales, customer service, and organizational development. His marketing and selling strategies have generated tens of millions in revenue for numerous Fortune 500 corporations. And we love hearing from Victor. He is a genius at graphics and knows how to paint the picture uh, without having to use 1,000 words. Your co-moderator today, we're real excited that we have Mr. R. Mitchell Jeffrey Jr. He's president of the Jeffrey Group. We call him Mitch. He founded the Jeffrey Group to serve corporations, nonprofit organizations, and individuals with their public affairs, public relations, and reputation management issues. And we all know those are important from year to year as we look at things that go on in the press and in public relations. Mitch has been involved in marketing communications, corporate communications, investor relations, corporate identity development for new businesses, product launches, annual reports, financial analyst meetings and reports, crisis management, public affairs, and community relations for more than 30 years. So we're going to do the point counterpoint today, folks, and this is going to be quite a treat. We want to make sure that this hour is well worth your time. So you'll notice that on your dashboard, you have the ability to type in questions. I will be monitoring that to make sure that if you have a question, we'll pose those questions to Victor and Mitch at the appropriate time, or we'll save them to the end of the webinar. If not that, then we'll make sure they get answered by email. If you do have a specific question about anything in your workplace, just go ahead and write this down. Victor at businessperformanceusa.org. He will get questions to the executive volunteers and make sure you get an answer. Also, on-demand webinars, you can go to our membership forum at businessperformanceusa.org and see all the webinars coming up. And also, if you sign up as a member, you'll be able to watch any of our webinars at any time. With that, what I'd like to do is go ahead and get started. And Victor, I'm going to share my screen with you.
Thank you, Cynthia. I really appreciate that. I appreciate the introduction. And Mitch, let me extend a warm welcome to you. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Oh, thank you, Vic. I'm glad to be here.
Excellent. Folks, Mitch has a fascinating background, and his presence here today is greatly welcome. He's a communications expert and a human sensitivity expert. That's my own description. He's never heard that before, but he gets people and he knows how to relate to people, and we're happy to have him today. Now, we're talking, of course, about marketing ROI, in the age of authenticity, and it would be reasonable to ask, what the heck does that mean? Why authenticity? Well, authenticity, or being genuine, or keeping it real, is what ROI is about, keeping it real. And so we want to start with that. We want to talk to you about what an authentic company is right off the bat, and we describe that as a company that's true to its core purpose, and it's fueled by a passion to make a difference in this world on some tangible level. It's about why companies do what they do. Now, the thing is, we don't know if we're making a difference in this world unless we can measure our progress. And that is the aspect of marketing ROI, what I also call MROI, that is genuinely authentic. It's keeping it real. And like they say, if you can't measure it, you can't manage it. And that's why we're introducing this. And frankly, all of our marketing series is about keeping it real. So we talk to companies about why do they exist. And one reason with this is to really serve its broad category of stakeholders, not just shareholders, but internal and external stakeholders. So what are some of the characteristics you'll find with an authentic company that manages an ROI process well? Well, we talk about this in other webinars, but probably the three key ones is a company that is self-aware and a learning organization, very, very critical. It's a company that believes that long-term relationships aren't sacrificed by short-term gains, and that's tough if you're a public company, I get it. But still, those long-term relationships really is what will drive ROI over the long term. And frankly, it's a willingness to be criticized while responding with gratitude. Thank you for telling me my shoelace is untied, if you will. So that's what ROI is about as well. Mitch, would you agree with these kind of authentic aspects of an ROI program, or do you have something to contribute as well?
Yeah, I think you're right on, Victor, that there's something that's very important to authenticity, and young people especially today are picking up on real companies, and it's important to understand that once you put that stake in the ground and make a declaration of who you are and what your core principles are, that you stick with them. And I guess the question I would raise is you mentioned their essential characteristics, but how does a CEO develop those? How do you cultivate something like a return on investment for marketing?
Well, that's a great question, Mitch. And by the way, folks, we didn't prompt Mitch with this, but that is the perfect segue into this entire webinar. It takes leadership, it takes vision, and frankly, sometimes it takes the willingness to not be a nice guy. ROI requires a lot of transparency and accountability, and the CEO needs to hold the feet to the fire in generally. What a CEO may need to do, or at least what I would like a CEO to do, is warm up to the softer metrics of an ROI program. Generally, it's understandable they want a hard return on investment for all of their capital expenditures, but I would hope that a CEO, while demanding those, would soften up to some of the what we call relationship metrics, and we'll get into that. But I'm glad you brought up the young folks too, because the millennial Mitch, are really who's keeping us honest in these days. They will not tolerate phoniness in the social media world, and that's important. But we'll keep moving on here. We want to talk about the leadership and with CEOs and the marketers, and it puts marketers in particular and CEOs in a position to lead their company, because they have to demonstrate what you're asking, Mitch, is about how collaboration works, what accountability and transparency are. Those are aspects of a well-managed organization. But what you see,
very true.
let's hope so, and that's why we're here at Business Performance USA, to help them get to that point. So what you're seeing here is these 5 points. Think of this as the landscape, if you will, of a ROI program, the why, what, who, when, and where aspects, and that's what we're going to get into here. So we're going to keep moving on here. We're going to start with cultivating your MROI. dovetails in the conversation we just had. And what does it mean to cultivate? You can look at it in the literal sense, to prepare and use land or soil for crops or gardening. There's a growing aspect to ROI. There's a cultivating. There's a pruning. Cultivation is also growing or maintaining in culture. You can think of biology, if you will, living cells. Every company, every organization is a living entity, if you will, and requires cultivation. And you're not going to have a harvest right away with ROI, but if you cultivate your crop well, you will indeed have a harvest. But cultivating is also trying to acquire, develop skills, and these are all worthy goals which require a unique commitment. And we start that with intent. So clear intent, what do you intend to measure, and how does it support your strategy in actionable ways? That's very, very key to actionable ways. A phrase that we use is want not, waste not. Now, it's a little backwards from what you're used to hearing, but if you don't want or need certain data, don't waste resources collecting it. A lot of the problems people make is to start casting a very broad net, and I think that's okay at times. But going back to the pruning analogy of cultivating, you want to prune out the data that you simply don't need or, frankly, not ready to use. If you're not ready to use it, send it down the road and pick up that data at 6 months, 12 months, 18 months down the line when you really can put it into action. Don't waste your resources collecting what you don't intend to use. And the action there is to start with the obvious measurements. Have you seen any issues with intent, poor intent, Mitch, in regards to measuring data with companies?
Well, I think you need to reach out to all of the folks in the company, as you've pointed out, and identify what you want to accomplish from a strategic level, externally and internally. You want your people to buy in to that intent, and they have to feel part of the family. And I think you've touched on one of the most important things is the people, and how do you bring them on board, and what do you intend to do with them? Do they feel welcome?
Thank you, Mitch. I appreciate that. So what we can also see is the aspects of collaboration, accountability, and transparency. This is where leadership also comes in. Collaboration, just think about the departments in your company and if they truly collaborate with each other. And typically there's nothing more that needs to be said about that. You probably may find that there's work to do in that arena. But are your collaborators, your departments, are they problem solvers? Do they think analytically and creatively? Now, those two are not mutually exclusive. Analysts can be creative. The do here is to make creativity contagious. Make it fun to come up with new ideas. Accountability is, do people own up to their own problems, or do they point fingers? So you want to acknowledge contributions, the positive contributions make, and you need to critique and coach and direct the contributions that aren't really contributing. Transparency, of course, is why people hate MROI programs. Marketers hate it. I don't like it. It makes people uncomfortable because, frankly, it exposes strengths and weaknesses, and but it does help get everybody on the same page. These are critical aspects of cultivating your MROI. We're going to jump into the 5 whys. The why of ROI, and that is, like we talked about, understanding the strategic implications of an ROI initiative. And this is how you start to begin change, really. Answering why is, from my experience, is a change factor question. It's also providing a rational explanation of what is needed and why it matters. And the purpose of why an organization exists comes into play here as well. So starting a program like this, or getting a program to become robust like this, requires that kind of rational explanation, if you will. What we know is that ROI efforts, is difficult, but the reason they're satisfying is that they help businesses make decisions at every level. And then we're not just talking about marketing. budgets, but about price, product, and promotion. All of this leads to great satisfaction, but because it can be uncomfortable, you want to give people the rationale of why they're moving forward. Yet, even though there's practical reasons for doing this in terms of intelligent decision making, smart companies also know that not all decisions need to be made with a marketing ROI, and we call these relationship metrics. So we know that according to research, and by the way, I want to cite some of the research. If you hear me saying statistics, these statistics came from the Columbia School of Business. Specifically, let me make sure I cite this correctly, but the 2012 Bright NY-AMA Marketing Transition Study was conducted by Columbia School of Business Center on Global Brand Leadership and in conjunction with the New York American Marketing Association. Those are the good folks that we got some of our statistics from. These statistics tell us that 91% of marketers believe that successful brands use customer data to drive marketing decisions. At the CMO level, that's 100% of people believe you need to use customer data to make marketing decisions. Problem is, a few people have reached that level of nirvana where they can really do so in a very important way. Another why discussion is to move a company to shift from lagging indicators to near or real-time knowledge of day-to-day decisions. That's a huge goal of marketing ROI, and one that needs to be realized, but it takes time to get there. And of course, social media is a big why as well. We can talk about that, and we will talk about that a little later on, but it's almost worthy of an entire webinar by itself. And we'll just keep moving on in the interest of time. But what you can do is to check out our blogs. We will be supplementing blogs, using blogs to supplement the information you hear here on this webinar and take it further. So look at businessperformanceusa.org, sign up to become a member. It's all free, and check out our blog.
Victor, I think you raised something very interesting for CEOs that are looking to measure some of the different things that of interest. I think they need to set a contextual framework before they launch into this, because the number of analytics out there can be daunting, and they all, whatever that framework is, it needs to tie back to the strategy and where the company plans to be 10 years, 5 years, 3 years down the road, but it needs to have a holistic view. The folks in finance need to relate to marketing, need to relate to legal, and typically companies are fairly siloed, and these folks don't communicate. I think that's important as people launch into measurement. They need to step back, look at what they want to measure, establish a contextual framework, and then dig into the hard metrics that are available.
You know, I'm glad you said that and commented on that, Mitch. You're absolutely right, and it creates a tug-of-war situation, because it's easy for one group or another to dominate that discussion and say it must be this, and if we don't get this, I'm going to take my ball and go home. I'm kind of obviously paraphrasing there, but the thing is that all of these entities, whether it's marketing, sales, finance is critical, of course, brand guys, customer service guys, supply chain, R&D, you know, they all really have a stake in this, and they all can get something out of it. But it's kind of like a buffet line, and you can't really serve everyone at once. You've got to start in a logical pattern and understand that other metrics or other stakeholders will get picked up further down the line. And that's where we need a little bit of patience and strategic planning, and that will dovetail us right in here to the what of ROI. So thank you, Mitch, for that. And concerning the what, we followed up, we started with the why, giving people the rational explanation of why we're going to change or expand this initiative, which can make people uncomfortable. The next question people typically ask is, so what does that mean? What are we going to be doing? What it means in simple terms is that we're launching or refining and improving an analytic-based practice which uses a technological platform and 4 metric categories here. In terms of technology, I can't answer what technology you really need. Where you want to start with, of course, is a CRM tool. You want to include a marketing and automation tool so that you can start delivering messages in close to real time that are highly customized. And third, you need a web analytics tool to capture trackable data. That is your foundation, and you will be building into more advanced, sophisticated profitability tools and supply chain tools and things like that. But secure the basis with CRM, marketing automation, and web analytics, and that's going to not just give you the groundwork that's more easily captured, but it's going to teach the discipline, and it's going to give you the foundation, the brick and mortar in the ground from which to build your ROI tool. So knowing what to measure is important as well. It's important to collect meaningful data, in terms of, well, so what are we going to measure here? Collect customer data from a diverse resources, traditional and new social media and digital media, and make that data as near or real-time data as possible. You want to connect that data to metrics that develop for measuring ROI, and you want to utilize this data to effectively target and personalize marketing efforts to customers. You want to be relevant to your customers. So when you see that your customer has a preference for antibacterial soaps, don't know why I came up with that one, but that's they're cleanliness people. They want a clean, safe environment. You want to make your communications relevant to that. And of course, in the B2B world, you want to make their communications relevant to their industry and their functional expertise and their goals and strategies and things like that. You want to make these communications relevant. So you start at the ground. Go ahead, Matt.
I think you raised an excellent point. It's important to understand that ROI isn't just about the numbers, because you can generate hundreds of different ways to measure things with the numbers, but it's about building that relationship with the customer and how you're going to grow that relationship and then bring in new customers, because in my world they're both tangible and intangible measurements, and it gets a little squishy sometimes, but they're also near and long-term measurements. And I think it's important to take that broad view and again, build that context in which you're going to put the content.
That's good, Mitch, and that's why I'm glad you're on this call, because you and I kind of represent our own unique perspectives. And I know, Mitch, from your bio, from knowing you, from knowing those that know you, you are very sensitive to the softer metrics, the brand perception. Perception is almost everything in this world. It's almost unfortunate that's the case, but that's just true, and you got to deal with it. So
it's very true, and I'm really in the perception and persuasion business, and we look at needing to move the needle, and the question is, how do we move the needle? And it may not be the most direct route.
That's a good point, and that takes patience and leadership. Knowing you can't draw a straight line from A to B, you got to loop around to it, and that it's difficult, particularly in a public company, which I know you have experience with, when they want immediate results, month-end, quarter-end results. It's difficult to have the patience to wait for that. But in moving on, if
and what happens in area A in your marketing, it might affect your stock price. It might affect how people follow you socially and believe in your causes, and you really want to be aware that that sales promotion you just ran actually got some people to buy into what you believe corporately in terms of causes. And but I'm taking you sideways here. I know you've got some more things to go through. So
well,
let's move on.
It's a worthy topic, and I appreciate you bringing it up. A campaign that I'm looking right now is the NFL campaign. I should have researched it before I bring it up, but they're getting the general public and celebrities to tell stories about what football means to them in their lives. And you have to ask yourself, well, they're not selling. Is this for selling tickets? No. Is it really the only thing it's for is perception? It's highly targeted towards women, and I won't get into why, but 100% a perception-based campaign. They're spending millions and millions on it, and it's being very effective. It's storytelling. It's relating personally to people and their lives, and making the connection between the NFL and how people bring that into their own family and social network. It's very powerful, very effective, and the NFL agrees with you, Mitch, because they're spending millions and millions of dollars on this.
It's a good example. Thank you. Yeah.
So we're going to move on. We have specifics we could talk about in what to do with your ROI, and I again suggest check out the next blog. It hasn't been posted yet, but it's being edited and ready to roll out, and we'll give you bullet point perspectives on what to do with your ROI. But let's look at some of these metrics categories, because this is a slightly different perspective here. What we've got is 4 categories of metrics. I'm calling this both KPAs and KPIs. The key performance areas are in the larger black text. I'm going to start in the lower right corner. A key performance area is trackable metrics. Then you can move into relationship metrics almost really at the same time. From those come financial metrics, and from those come profitability metrics. The point being, first of all, is you can't get to profitability typically from scratch. Maybe if you're a $25 billion company, you have the infrastructure to jump there quickly, or you're probably already there. But most of us are not. Most of us are slugging it out on Main Street, and that's where you want to start with the trackable metrics. And this is where your CRM tools, your marketing automation tools, your web analytics will tell you response rates, web traffics, downloads, new names generated. That's a big one with social media, but being able to track those new names into customers is where you really need finance involved, and understand what who your customer base is. Filling out profile completeness, constantly adding new data and capturing new data is very, very important. And it doesn't always have to be technology that completes a profile completeness. It can be people in the field simply asking questions. I'm talking to my hair guy. What do you call him these days? I'll just call him a barber because I'm old school. But talking to him about collecting marketing data and customer data while they're having casual conversations with their customers. It's very, very important for them to do that. Then you can get into relationship metrics, and Mitch, this is your world, brand perception again. And you really need to have conversations with your audiences to understand where they're going. This is not so easily trackable, but it is measurable, and it typically takes conversations or surveys, one-on-one groups, one-on-one meetings, focus groups, to start picking those relationship metrics. And then, of course, you move into finance, because the world expects results, and this is what makes people uncomfortable. But you want to be able to track incremental sales and cost per lead and conversion and market share, which may be close to impossible for some companies. And of course, budgeting decisions. And from here, we move into profitability metrics. One of the most important ones is on the bottom. I don't know why it's there, but I put it there. So, but lifetime customer value talks about, again, respecting that customer, treating them appropriately, bringing them in maybe through a referral, getting their repeat business, and being able to forecast the profitability for that customer, so you know how to invest in that customer. Invest in terms of incentives or discounts, perhaps. A lot of companies discount their way into the red on their P&L, and marketers tend to make the mistake of giving away a little too much on the marketing, which cuts into that customer value. So this is a broad world. We've sliced it this way, which is a little different slicing, but you can see all the different things you can measure here.
Yeah, Victor, it's quite daunting, isn't it? And I think you've got something identified here that could give a CEO a starting point to build a system and integrate it into his company or her company, because otherwise it can be quite overwhelming, and you end up with a bunch of numbers and you don't know exactly what they mean or where you need to go. But this is a good model.
Thanks, Mitch. And this, again, gets really back to your point. You got a lot of people standing at the buffet line wanting something out of this initiative. And you need to have the discussion at the C-suite level that, you know, we may not be able to serve everyone right away. It takes discipline. We're going to talk about the time variables within this program a little later in these slides. But this talks, you know, you can see the diversity here in both stakeholders and the diversity in function of an ROI program. And this is why it takes a lot of time, a lot to do here.
Well, I think you're right. I'm glad you mentioned time, because I had a question about that. But go ahead and finish your talk.
Okay. Well, we have a when category. When does this all happen? So we'll pick that up on that slide, Mitch. If you'll pose me with a question, then that would be great. We're going to talk about the who is involved. Again, we've already talked about a lot in terms of stakeholders. And we've talked about multi-department leadership. Do your silos actually collaborate? Do they accept transparency and accountability? We've had a lot of this discussion already, but we cannot understate the importance of this issue of who in collaboration and everyone getting on the same page. Some of our basic tips, the reason you want collaboration is because you need to share data across the company. Not just share data, but collect data. And you need to link this actionable data together at the prospect and client level. You need to know what conversation you just had with a customer and how to have the next conversation. You need to know what that purchase history is and the trending, and see if that customer is growing or at risk or is perhaps dropped off. All CRM and marketing ROI measurements. And going back to the Columbia School of Business survey, the number one thing that came out of their 2012 survey is that they considered, or at least the respondents of the survey, the majority considered leadership and data sharing the most important drivers to success in measuring ROI. So Mitch, there you go. It's the leadership issue. And the difference between those...
Oh, absolutely.
I want to hear your input in a second. Let me just finish up with this because I started mid-sentence. But I appreciate you jumping in, Mitch. Always feel free to do so. What was interesting is a satisfaction indicator from the study I cited, and the difference between those satisfied or dissatisfied with their ROI program came down, like I said, to leadership and sticking with it. The leadership setting measurable objectives for marketing decisions like we saw on the slide before. And this is not an easy issue. I remember in one firm, large firm, we had with marketing ROI and tracking costs and getting people to fill out time cards and knowing where our labor went. Essentially, much of my own team, mutiny on the bounty here, strongly resisted this initiative, strongly, and that's why I can't emphasize the why. And I thought we were locked in, but we had to go right back to the why conversation. And ultimately it came down, I asked them, if this was your business, would you track these costs? A lot of them nodded head. One individual nodded, no, I wouldn't do it. And I was frankly stunned. We had continuing conversation about the issue, and I finally told this individual that, well, then in that case, it's a good thing you're not in business because you wouldn't last long. And at a later time, I pulled this individual aside and said, honestly, I'm concerned about you making business decisions for this company if you don't have the strength and the discipline to initiate this program and get your people on board. People don't want to do this. But you got to get them there, or you got to get somebody who's willing to go there. This is a tough discipline. So what do you think on that topic, Mitch?
Well, I think you're absolutely right regarding leadership, because the CEO has a lot. He's kind of like the mechanic on the old Jaguar with a V12, and you just have to continually keep it tuned or it doesn't run. But part of what the CEO has to do is create a culture of continuous improvement within the company, and that comes out in both hard and soft metrics and long and short term. But they have to understand that they have an opportunity here to help drive that vision that CEO creates. And I think if you look at where people are being successful in this, you can look at Dr. John Carnegie and what he's done with his adaptive design and how he's improving hospital performance. And it goes from the top down, but what it does is it invests the department heads and the individuals to feel part of that collaboration, that transparency, that accountability. They want to be part of the solution and see themselves as an integral part of the company going forward. So without that and reaching across the lines of the different silos, you're going to fail. You can improve your energy efficiency, your economic efficiency, your business efficiency by striking down those silos and building up from within the importance of the people and where they fit. And that you're absolutely right, but it comes from leadership.
You know, I'm glad you said that, Mitch. I agree. You talked about everybody wants to be included, and I really, really believe that. If somebody doesn't want to be included, I have concern for that individual and their future in the company. But that inclusion, that feeling that they are genuinely contributing, they're adding value, is a huge bonus for employees. And we talk, if I may, you know, incentives are an important part of an ROI, but frankly, more than money, people want to be valued, they want to be included, they want to be part of the bigger picture and know that they're doing meaningful work. Sometimes people, you know, don't like the number crunching, other people love it, but it's all meaningful work. And that broader inclusion of talking about who is involved, why are we doing this, sets the stage for that, and it gives people purpose, the purpose for showing up to work.
Yeah, I think you're right, and you tap into a lot of creative elements you might not be aware of. You start to bring people in and ask, how would you measure this? And you might find that somebody from marketing has some real good accounting ideas, and you're like, where'd that come from? But you have to unleash that creativity inside the company. And to do that, you've got to give them permission and encourage it and build that framework and that attitude. Because how you measure stuff will impact the folks that help design the system to measure it.
I'm glad you said that, Mitch. In the beginning, we talked about authenticity and how creativity is an aspect of that, and make creativity contagious. I believe all functional disciplines in a company can be creative. IT and the sciences are very creative disciplines. I get a little nervous when I think about finance being creative, but there is creativity in structuring capital and things like that as well. So creativity exists everywhere in a company, and it needs to be rethought about what is creative and who is creative. Like you said, I mean, a marketing guy coming up with financial analysis or process, I mean, who knew?
Yeah, it can happen.
It could happen. I think it's happened once this century so far. I'm a marketing guy, so I make fun of myself and my peers. So we're talking now about the win. This is your cue, Mitch, if you can jump in any time. But the bottom line is you need to think about, if you're just starting out or if you've been doing it but you're getting nowhere, and boy can I relate to that, you just got to think of a 2-year plan, frankly, and that's what all the data and statistics tells me and tells us. It begins with developing an ROI program, you know, knowing that it's a work in progress. You just simply have to get started. But the good news is, if you do, according to Columbia School of Business, that 22% of those dissatisfied with their ROI program become satisfied after 2 years. Yet, of those that are already happy with it and satisfied, only 3 slip into the dissatisfied column. So you can get to the satisfied column. It's unlikely you will drop out of that column. And if you do drop out of being satisfied with your ROI, it's probably because you've lost discipline, your technology is broken, or you're simply not following the fundamentals that got you there. So, time spent working on it is the #1 success factor. There's no other way around it. It's like doing push-ups for an athlete. You got to do your push-ups. You got to do your research and all the tough work. Um, but in addition, organizations, well, like I said, I'll probably just move on. But Mitch, you had a question about time. Have I answered it, or should I be more specific?
No, you really have touched on it. I think the key is that this isn't a snapshot. It's going to operate over time, and if you think about it as a river, that it's flowing and it's going to adapt and change as it flows, but it doesn't just happen one time. It is a continuous thing that is continuously changing, but it isn't going to give you what you want in a necessarily a short period of time. It takes several years, I would say, at least two, as you said, but probably longer to establish that baseline and build an awareness of what trends are really there and understand what's causing those trends, because it gets back to authenticity with the customer and authenticity with your employees. And if you take that view and you build this system and understand, I'm not going to measure this for this year. Yeah, I got some good analytics. I know what I did last year, but that tells me nothing about the future. So it needs to be forward-looking, as you pointed out.
Good points, Mitch. I appreciate that. And it's true. It's important to know there is no finish line. I keep talking about 2 years, but that's a readily identifiable milestone where people are saying, yeah, this is really great. Let's stick with it. I'm glad we started. But 2 years doesn't mean you're over. It's a process of continual improvement. And I know my colleague Cynthia Stewart, also helping us with this webinar, understands that concept very, very well, practices it and preaches it every day, that of continual improvement and learning and growing.
I think you used a good term earlier on. It's a conversation, and you have these conversations internally and externally, but if you consider your analytics conversation, it puts it into a different perspective. It's not just a thing. It's a process, and that gives you a different perspective.
Exactly. And we're gonna talk about process and time. We're gonna move on in time here. Just a quick note, you can see this illustration we have here of the pruners. We started at the top of about why, and we're working our way down to the ground floor. And we are going to hit the ground floor at this point, and this is the where of ROI. So where does all this work take place? Okay, in this world isn't always a physical world, it's a virtual world, but where it takes place physically is the teaming aspect. We've talked about that with the who, but the teaming isn't just one meeting, it's the constant collaboration. It has to take place with the tools we talked about, starting with CRM, marketing automation, and web analytics. The techniques have to be honed and developed, and this is why we talk about cultivating a skill set. Standards, of course, which is where we talked about with our metrics and the key performance areas and key performance indicators. And then it takes place with the culture, the willingness to be accountable and transparent, the willingness to say, we're not doing the best we can, we need to improve, and even asking for help is an important aspect of the culture. It's all of these areas that take place with the where aspect of it. And so just some tips. We're getting close to wrapping this up, but in terms of the where, just again to make clear your business objectives for any marketing effort. You need to look at traditional and digital marketing channels. We haven't talked a lot about the social marketing metrics. It's a very big and important new aspect of this. We will be covering that in blogs. But you need to develop a variety of metrics for the new digital tools as well. And what that means is channel-specific metrics, tracking retweets for Twitter, Facebook sharing and likes, all these social media tools have different metrics, and you have to look at them unto themselves. It's very difficult to compare apples and oranges sometimes with social media, but you need to understand that you're going to end up developing your where of ROI is going to take place in traditional metrics, market share, brand perception, awareness, recall, and things like that that Mitch talks about so well, and then the trackable issues of social media metrics. And you need to continually innovate new measurement models as these digital tools grow and expand and evolve. So that's about it, really. We're going to talk about where do we go from here. So one obvious place to go from here is to join us today at Business Performance USA. It's free, and this is a nonprofit organization that is assembled and put together so that you can grow and develop your career and your business. Look for our blog series on Marketing ROI and start your journey. Start somewhere and join us on our member page and ask questions. Let's brainstorm together. What I would suggest is that when you start your practice, make sure you are in sync with finance. They'll love you for it. They'll be a little shocked that you might actually knock on their door and have this question without them having to chase you down. But that's a leadership issue. Step up and be accountable. In terms of data, make sure it's timely, actionable, linked to the customer level. Use it to personalize your marketing interactions and target your customers. And make sure you share data across the entire organization so that customer gets a holistic experience in terms of all of their touch points, so that you know that customer on the level of the old, turn of the 20th century corner drugstore where, Ma Kettle walked in and the guy behind the counter knew exactly what she would want because it's Tuesday, and so on and so on. It's all possible and all doable. And that's why we're here to help you. So I'm going to close out here with a couple more things. This again is the Age of Authenticity series, and we have future webinars coming up. You can watch these webinars on demand. That's a great way to do it, and we track our website as well. We see that people are really probably, we're almost 50-50 with watches live and watches online. So it's a helpful tool. We've got Dr. Jeff, a brilliant man, talking about change implementation coming up, using the right tool for the right job. We've got our host here, Cynthia Stewart. And Cynthia, I'm kind of taking your thunder here, but I'm going to switch over to a page, and then I'll let you finish up if I may kind of throw a wrench into our process here. Cynthia Stewart has some great cultural, organizational webinars, and you should definitely pay attention to what she's doing here. And Nancy Roberts is wildly popular with her series on background screening, helping you hire talent and manage risk. I'm going to click over to here and have you take a look at our member page, if I may. And then Cynthia, I am going to turn it over to you, if that works for you.
Okay, Victor, thank you.
But while Cynthia, feel free. Okay, Victor, thank you. Okay, you got it.
Okay, so here you are at Business Performance USA, and you're going to feel like it's a friendly environment just like Facebook, but this is a private online business community where we will be posting all kinds of goodies for you, and all you need to do is sign up as a member, and you'll be able to download these posters like the one you're looking at under Victor. He's showing us the membership. When you get logged on to Business Performance, there's your membership page. Just tracking you, Victor. And then here's Victor's wall. And you'll notice that he's laid there a slide that is probably a poster that you can download. He does lots of that, lots of those good graphics. So, folks, go ahead and join us and come in and meet some of the other great people. They're all business people like yourselves, and they're looking at our webinars. They're interacting on topics, and it's a great place to come and be part of. With that, I'm going to go ahead and close out our webinar for today. We are really happy to have Mitch join Victor today so that we have a little bit more of a dialogue. We appreciate the thoughts that Victor shares on a regular basis about marketing, his age of authenticity. He couldn't have said it better. This is the age of authenticity. So we thank you for those thoughts, Victor. Come back and see us next week, and don't miss the opportunity to be a member of Business Performance USA and come check out our webinars. Go out and make it a great day, everyone. Thanks so much for your time and for your attention. With that, I'll be closing the webinar.